Thanks for joining us on the Week in Review. I'm Paris Schutz. We'll be joined by our Week in Review guests in just a moment. But first, a landmark guilty verdict in the ComEd 4 trial, and now all eyes on Michael Madigan.
We do not want to stand for this sort of corruption.
The verdict, a blow to Madigan as he prepares for his own trial.
This is a crucial moment for our city. If there's one thing that could bring me out of retirement, it was this opportunity to leave and return to the place that I've given so much of my life to.
Incoming Mayor Brandon Johnson selects an old face to be the new interim chief for CPD, but he makes clear he will not seek the job full-time. Mayor Lightfoot comes out of hiding to give her first exit interview since losing re-election. And in sports, the Bears make moves on Arlington Heights while welcoming their new draft picks. And the 500 Cubs hope top prospect Matt Mervis gives them a needed jolt. And here to take on all of that and more is our Week in Review panel. Ray Long of the Chicago Tribune, Craig Dellamore of WBBM News Radio, Hannah Meisel of Capital News Illinois, and Mike Mulligan of WSCR 670 The Score. Let's get right into it. All right, Ray Long, let's surmise that Mike Madigan and his attorneys had a phone call after that verdict in the ComEd 4 trial. What was that conversation like, you think?
Well, they had a lot to talk about because I think they would have to change their strategy. A lot of the ideas that came out in the ComEd 4 trial are ones that they probably thought were going to be winners, and they probably thought they could use them in the Madigan case. But when they come out with a clean sweep of all 4 people guilty and of all counts, I think they really have to think about whether their arguments that this is just legal lobbying and there's nothing wrong with it. I think that is going to be something that will make them do a double take on and recalibrate.
You mentioned clean sweep on all counts for all the defendants. Mm-hmm. The jurors said they want to send a message about corruption. Mike Mulligan, do you think that message is finally going to be received? It wasn't really after the Blagojevich verdict.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that if I'm Mike Madigan, I know he's managing to put off his trial for another year somehow. He's been kind of locking up Illinois state politics for about as long as I can remember, and I've never heard anyone say, God, I love that Mike Madigan. So I think he's got some real issues and problems, and I think that this is going to be more than a shot across the bow. I think this, if you're not paying attention to what happens to this guy after all the power he had for all those years, then people are just going to be, you're just bad for a living if you can't learn from this.
Craig Dellamore, might a change in strategy involve a plea deal? I mean, I think we know the answer to that. Someone like Madigan, someone of his stature, usually does not accept a plea deal, and they fight to the bitter end.
And I don't see him sitting down and pleading out. That is not his nature. But on the other hand, he's also a person who assesses the field and looks at what the landscape is. So he may make some kind of judgment, but I think really they're just gonna, he is a good lawyer. I think they're gonna sit down and figure out what other arguments might work, but just saying this is just politics, it didn't work for Blagojevich and it didn't work for the people in the ComEd trial.
He's got a good lawyer and lots of his political money to pay a lot of those bills. Hannah Meisel, what about the 4 here? Convicted, Pramaggiore, Hooker, McLean, Doherty. Now that they're facing the prospect of real jail time, do they consider some kind of deal to avoid a harsh sentence?
I mean, we have, just today on Friday, we heard that they will be sentenced all the way in January. And so that's a lot of time that they have to get together, you know, their best arguments, their best character witnesses, and their best, you know, strategy to avoid as much prison time as they can. But, you know, most likely because the government, you know, we heard from them after the verdict on Tuesday, they really want to send a message, and they're going to be fighting for, you know, harsh punishment as a deterrent. You know, you mentioned before it didn't work after Blagojevich. I kind of feel like Blagojevich was such a weird, specific kind of crime, and he was just such a weird.
Other folks thought we're not Blagojevich.
Right, exactly. And so this is different. This is not the typical, you know, bribery. This is not cash in an envelope. It was bribery, you know, basically to increase Madigan's political capital. It's different, but it's definitely closer to the thing that people in Springfield might, want to look at what they're doing and say, maybe this is too close to that kind of redefined line.
And that's the thing. Does anything in the way of ethics reforms come out of this, Ray Long? Because this gets it to the heart of lobbying, something that is done multiple times every day in Springfield.
It should. It should change things, but I don't see them doing anything, especially now. They're using the excuse now, well, we're too far down the line and we're deep in the process in Springfield. We try to wrap up in May. You know, they can pass a bill in a matter of hours if they want to. So if they were serious, and it's not like they haven't been studying ethics for years and years, they could come up with some strong changes that could make a difference. They just don't want to.
I was talking to some of the reform people earlier today about the kinds of things they think could pass, and while none of them is holding their breath, they are saying some lobbying restrictions, revolving door, where somebody can't one day be sitting next to their colleagues in the House, and the next day be coming in and lobbying. And the other thing is more independence and more power for the Inspector General, who still has to ask permission to investigate the people and get that permission from the people who are being investigated, which is ridiculous.
Right, very, very watered down rules there. Ray Long, back to the question of what these four convicts now might do with respect to the Madigan trial. Is there any other information that they might have that did not come out in this trial?
Well, they would have to know a lot of things that they didn't talk about and weren't asked about. And so if they do feel that that's enough capital for them, if they do think they can trade, they may go to the government, or the government may come to them. So there is a likelihood that there will be a lot more at play with Madigan. It's not just ComEd, although the ComEd case will be in play, but they also have the AT&T affiliate here in Illinois too that they're going to be talking about rolling in, stuffing in Madigan allies into contracts that were under the table.
So it goes beyond ComEd here for Madigan.
Yeah.
Tepid response so far from Democrats. I mean, there's been some response. The Congressman Sean Casten today said Madigan should step down from his remaining public post, which is ward committeeman of the 13th Ward. But Mike Mulligan, why do you think Democrats escape punishment here from voters for this kind of behavior? Mike Madigan led the party.
It's a great question. I think that maybe some people are still kind of afraid of him. I think it's almost like you got to wait until this actually occurs and make sure it all happens. That guy lasted for so long and wielded so much power that you don't know where all the bodies are buried or how people view it.
But also, I mean, to come out with a statement stronger than, something that would admit any sort of complicity, you don't want that as a Democrat, because Democrats
you just want your distance.
Well, yeah. Democrats
Madigan,
have spent the last
never heard of him.
2 or 3 years, ever since Madigan was named Public Official A in ComEd's July 2020 Deferred Prosecution Agreement, they've spent so much time trying to keep their distance from him. I mean, they want to project this image of a remade Illinois Democratic Party and politics that are remade without him. I don't know if that's completely true, but it does make sense that they're not coming out with more stronger statements than, I mean, Senate President Don Harmon, he came out with a pretty strong statement.
Right.
He said it was something like stunning gluttony.
Mm-hmm. Stunning gluttony. That doesn't get much stronger than
But there's
that.
still no public outcry, and that's
Right.
the only thing that politicians are going to listen to. And you've still got a public that looks at both the Republicans and the Democrats and says, they're all corrupt.
Right.
They can push it away too, because Madigan helped build it into super majorities in the Senate and the House. So Democrats control everything by wide margins. So if they want to crush reform, they can do it easily.
All right, so what are they saying behind the scenes, Ray Long? Politicians, lobbyists about this verdict?
There's a lot of people who are still in denial that this is a crime, that there was a crime committed, and that there are a lot of people in denial that Madigan's charges are real or should be even prosecuted or pursued. So some people in Springfield who feel that this has gone on and is legal ought to be reconsidering, and even the U.S. Attorney said, they ought to be consulting lawyers to find out where the lines
And
are.
so many of these lobbyists got their start with Madigan.
Oh,
And their
yes.
career, they owe their career
Right.
to Madigan. Craig Dellamore, let's shift gears here to Chicago. Incoming Mayor Brandon Johnson taps 34-year CPD veteran Fred Waller to lead the department in the interim. What do you make of this pick?
I think it's a brave man because he knows whatever happens during the summer, he owns. And perhaps, first off, I kind of think that's one of the reasons why the original interim, Eric Carter, may have left, because he would have owned it.
And we should stipulate, he's leaving with Mayor Lightfoot, so he's not going to stay on, and that's why Johnson. Do you think Johnson told him to take a walk because of what happened in the Loop a couple weekends ago?
I don't think so. I think that was his own decision, because what can any interim really do except command especially if you don't really want the full job. So I think he's going to come in and use his expertise, his knowledge of the department to plan as best they can and hope that it turns out better than anyone expects.
What about the issue of his past association with the disgraced former Sergeant Ronald Watts? It came up at the press conference. Should this be a cause of concern? And has he adequately answered those questions?
Well, I think that there's always going to be something in the past of somebody who has gone through the ranks that long. That is a particular hot button. That may be why he's not going to go for a full term. The other thing to consider about the new choice here, the interim choice, is that he has a background in dealing with patrol people. And so the beat cops have a relationship with him, and he, overseeing the beats, has a better handle of what the different beats need.
Hannah Meisel, CPD, did come out with sort of a broad summer safety plan today. Are you confident that, given all this transition at the mayor's office, at CPD, that the department will have a handle on the warmer weather in the summer months when crime does tend to increase?
We can't say for sure sitting here in early May. We couldn't say, 3 years ago, we didn't know that at the end of May, George Floyd would be murdered and it would kick off a summer of protests. There are so many unknowns,
right.
But we can hope that they have learned. And of course, this is, we now have the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. They face a mid-July deadline to search for a new CPD chief. And we hope that, of course, the new administration is, learning from what is being said at those meetings and learning, of course, from what is being said in the department. And I think it's really interesting that in those meetings, the overwhelming consensus is they want someone who is, a CPD veteran. We've seen, in David Brown and in Charlie Beck, folks who've come in from the outside.
Gary McCarthy.
Yeah, I mean, it's of course, you always do want to look at things with fresh eyes, but Chicago's just so unique, and it's really hard to lead a department that doesn't have, you don't have a history with.
It does seem like there is some sort of consensus there right now that they want someone with a history with the department. Mike Mulligan, you're coming down downtown to work every day. Right. How do you feel about the prospects for the summer down in the Loop?
Not very good. I got to tell you, I think that we're losing police officers like crazy. I think Waller himself said that they feel like they have no support. They feel like they're kind of out on their own. I think it's a terrible job right now, right? I mean, would you want to be a Chicago cop and dealing with everything going on and just feeling like you're not going to be able to do anything about it? So I think it's going to be a rough summer.
Well, let's hope for something better than that, though. And what about that? About Fred Waller? About his history with the department? Is that going to be to his benefit and to Brandon Johnson's benefit as someone who the police are very, wary of?
What I've heard from a number of people in the rank and file is that Waller is very well liked, and that they are encouraged by his being hired to be the interim. So as far as that goes, and I agree with Ray here, that being that he has those ties with patrol, that's going to be where the rubber meets the road, literally, for the summer. And if we get anywhere with that, then people will be happy with it.
All right, let's move on to this issue of the migrants in South Shore. Residents are upset. They had a community meeting last night about the mayor's plan to bring 250 or so to the abandoned South Shore High School. Is this plan going forward officially?
Well, nobody knows for sure, but they seem to be moving that direction. And the reality is that a lot of these people just feel like they were taken by surprise. It's kind of like we had talked before the show. It's like NASCAR was sprung onto them. Only this is...
Talking about the NASCAR city race
yes, right.
July 4th weekend.
Right, thank you. And so they just feel that this was dropped on their neighborhood without any warning, and there's some tension there. There's ethnic and racial tension too, but there's a belief that they didn't have a say, and that's really what people wanted.
All right, so Mayor Lightfoot, though, she's only in office a little more than a week, so what's Brandon Johnson's approach then?
Well, his approach right now is to not say much publicly about it, but say we are going to look at it and take stock of everything. But I don't know that that will be the first thing he does on day one, but it's certainly going to be one of the things that is on his list.
And Mayor Lightfoot's pleading with Texas Governor Greg Abbott to stop sending migrants here. She says the city can't handle anymore. It does not seem like he's going to oblige that, does it? That we're going to see more sent here.
No, I mean, this is the approach from Greg Abbott and, other governors, Ron DeSantis. This is, for them, it's not about the individual. It's about the message that it's sending, and it's about, these liberal cities, putting the test and I guess in their minds revealing the quote unquote hypocrisy in blue cities. So I don't see an end to it anytime soon.
And we see reports now of the old Standard Club in the Loop is going to house migrants. There were migrants that were housed temporarily in police stations. Does this city have the capacity, right?
Well, this city has a big heart, and this city knows that this is a question of humanity here. And can you just shut down like we have our own wall here in Chicago, or can we open up some, I'm not saying people aren't doing it, you just mentioned an example there, but can we open up some of these areas where we have open spaces? We opened up McCormick Place for COVID. Could we do something like that, or maybe a hotel or other places, schools, if they're vacant? Can we put them in there temporarily so that we can give them a place to reinvigorate their lives?
What's the long-term solution, Craig Delmore? Now we have Title 42 at the border expiring next week, which a lot of folks predict will cause a surge of new migrants. Title 42 was the Trump-era, Biden-era policy of expelling migrants due to COVID, so that's going away. What's the long-term outlook? Well,
unfortunately, the long-term outlook may be that we're going to have a lot of little short-term outlooks because we're going to see a new surge, and that's going to continue the crisis level of people arriving maybe by the hundreds or 1,000, a day. That is going to overtax any system. I think the long-term is that maybe it might have to be a regional solution where you get some of the suburbs that have newly aligned with Chicago.
And that's been part of the solution in the past, and that's caused controversy. In
Exactly.
Burr Ridge, the mayor was upset about it.
Well, that was because it was just sprung on them, right?
By the governor.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so, if you had a more collaborative approach, hopefully you could get like you said, a more regional solution to this, and not just it all being on the city of Chicago.
So is there a state level plan to deal with this then, to coordinate the entire region or the entire state dealing with it?
I mean, not that I'm aware of that there's, talk publicly, but, the governor's office is certainly aware of it, and, I'm sure, has some sort of contingency plans or, rough outlines of plans going forward as this continues.
All right, so, it's a tricky political situation for Mayor Brandon Johnson. He got elected by progressive Latinos and African Americans, but you mentioned the kind of racial politics here, so how would you advise him to handle this? I know this is not your job.
But something that Brandon Johnson himself says, which is to sit all the parties down at the table and to talk it out. He is a kind of a collaborative guy anyway, and what you do have to do is to get all of this, as they like to say, the stakeholders, and sit down and say, what do we need to do, and what can we do, and what will you accept?
And speaking of being a collaborative guy, there was a lot of concern in the business community, about Brandon Johnson's background and what that was going to mean for them. There has been some outreach over the last couple weeks. Have some of those concerns been allayed at all?
I think the fact that there's been outreach has been encouraging, but we're in the early days.
If they thought maybe he was going to stonewall them entirely, that's not the case.
I do think, though, that there are businesses who are still wary about the whole idea that taxes could be coming, that there could be head taxes that he's talked about, that there could be other things that may end up being signs to Chicago like, if you come here, you're going to have to pay a few more dollars to operate. And in a city that's already losing a lot of major prestigious places and some neighborhood grocery stores, you have to wonder whether all that will work out.
Speaking of prestigious businesses leaving the city, Mike Madigan, the Bears, it pretty much is a fait accompli right now. The news comes out that they're seeking permits for the demolition of the current Arlington Park grandstand there to build their stadium. So is this full steam ahead, even though there's uncertainty about the financing and how much help they're getting from Springfield?
Yeah, I think that the Bears view this as sort of a turning point in their organization, and they view it as something they have to do. Whether people want to hear it or not, Soldier Field is the smallest building in the NFL. You're never going to be able to get a Super Bowl in Chicago. Obviously, the weather's a problem. We'll see how much money they have and what they can build out in Arlington Heights. But that to me is a done deal. That is the way forward for this franchise to own their own building. It will, just buying that property increase the value of the franchise. The Bears are worth a lot of money. And I think, we talk about the price of everything going up. The price of like an NFL team is going crazy. And the Bears, if they want to tap into that, they need to have their own stadium.
Hannah Meisel, we had a state representative from Des Plaines on about a week and a half ago saying that the Bears have almost no lobbying presence down in Springfield, and they're going to need some goodies, some kind of tax abatement, some kind of money for infrastructure. So what's the status of all of that?
I mean, so I've been up here covering the ComEd trial, but I mean, Laura Murphy is totally right. I mean, you have to have lobbying presence in Springfield, but this isn't, just a one-year deal. How long is it going to take?
Yeah, it'll take.
It'll take several years.
So, they'll probably try next session and the session after that. So, this is just beginning stages, but, she is right. There has to be people down in Springfield fighting for this.
Just not the ones that were caught up with ComEd and Mike Madigan. They'll have to go a different direction there. All right, let's talk about the Cubs. A little bit of excitement today because Matt Mervis, a highly touted prospect, came up. Is he going to give this team a jolt? I mean, they won. He had RBI.
Look, they need more power, and he's a power guy. And they've put a team together that looks pretty good, but they lost, 5 of 6 games by 1 run. They're not getting timely hitting. They need power. Every once in a while, you need a guy to hit a dinger.
So is he going to be an everyday starter?
I think they will use him quite a bit. I think that, thus far, Hosmer especially and Mancini have not done everything they've wanted from them. And I think that you got a guy that's killing it down in the minor leagues. They got another guy in Christopher Morel. I just don't know where you play him every day. But they have a lot of young players that can make them better as you move forward and also be like trade bait for other teams. So you're going to get better.
And this is a team that's 500, as we mentioned now, but there are elements. Great pitching, starting pitching right now.
Yeah.
Some good hitting, but not power hitting, as you mentioned. So are the Cubs going to be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline?
It's a really good question. They go out to the West Coast and they win, 5 of 6. And then they go to the East Coast and they're losing to teams. They lost 3 games to Florida by 1 run, and they should do better against them. They should do better against Washington. We'll see how this goes, but I think that they could be buyers, which is a huge headline.
All right, well, hold that thought really quickly. We're going to close the show, but we're going to talk a little bit more over credits. We are out of time, so our thanks to Ray Long, Craig Delamore, Hannah Meisel, and Mike Madigan. And that is our show for this Friday night. Don't forget, you can get Chicago Tonight and the Weekend Review streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and our website, WTTW.com/news. And join us tonight at 10 for Chicago Tonight, Black voices. And now for the Week in Review, I'm Paris Schutz. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a great night. We have to move 8 miles south and talk about the White Sox. So what is Jerry Reinsdorf's reaction to all this outcry right now? I mean, he's got a team that's in the cellar. Fans are revolting.
Honestly, did you hear what he said during the week? I would say tone deaf would be the response from Jerry. He talked about, how all he's ever wanted to do is win, but he also talked about selling hope, get a team to finish second or third, and people love that idea because you're selling hope. And David Sampson, who was a former Florida GM, he said that Jerry told him that when he was first coming up, and they sent out like a nasty note denying it, and this guy was making it up, all this stuff. He basically said the same stuff out in California, like literally echoed what this guy said, he said.
So basically, if we finish second or third and people have hope for the future, that's good enough.
That's
It'll take hope to get to second or third.
Absolutely. So is anyone going to be on the hot seat here? Rick Hahn, the general manager?
It's a great question. Jerry is known for his loyalty to people that work for him. You could argue that's disloyal to the fan base that follows the team, but I don't think he's ever really cared.
Does he care about the fact that it causes a dwindling attendance?
Well, I mean, that's...
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that is proud to recognize its 18 attorneys selected for the 2023 Super Lawyers List.